Okay, we're on record. Okay.
We call this regular meeting of the Board of Ethics to order August 17th, 3:05 p.m. Roll call.
Ms. Flannery,
Present.
Dr. Kelly,
Here.
Mr. Silver,
Here.
Ms. Phillips. Here. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the previous meeting?
Yes.
Yes.
Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Persons to be heard?
So, without mentioning any names, on a matter previously heard, which was the notice of potential violation 2010-2, which was dismissed,
Please identify your name. Sorry for the record.
Christopher Constant, I can understand how your perceptions were informed by communications that were given to you, probably by members who were before you being investigated. But I would offer that your interpretation of the scenario was in fact wrong. And while your determination is your own to make, and boy, am I very interested to hear about 2011- whatever number that was, because things become so clear when you're looking at them that if that was dismissed, I just can't wait to see the justification. But on this matter, one of the individuals named, has revealed the fact that this was filed to two public members of the Fairview Community Council. And he did so by stating that the matter was dismissed because I was a liar and because it was not factual. And so in this letter that you wrote to me, you stated, for quote, and this is dated October the 25th, 2010. Further, the board believes that you misrepresented information presented to us in your letter dated August 25th, where you stated that, quote, within a quote, upon filing the notice of potential violation, I have not made any immediate outreach nor attempted to make issue of these claims to allow this board to perform its duty and internal quote. Finish the letter. You made this statement well after the publication of your commentary on Alaska Dispatch on July 19th. End of quote of the letter. I submitted, in fact, my post to the Alaska Dispatch on July the 17th before I filed any documentation here. And I had no control over when they published it. And in fact, my coming to this board was a result of somebody who read that saying, you should file a charge. But what would have been nice is had this body, in fact, before making a published letter that states, you're a liar, you would have asked me back here for a little clarification. Because now what's happening in the public is this letter is being used to paint a picture that somebody who acted, who has revealed in fact that this action took place, is calling me a liar through you. And so I am now having to bear the fact of what I believe is a misstatement of its own as the way things are. Trying to do my duty as a citizen to keep accountable these people who are lying, cheating, and stealing on the public time, in my opinion. And so I have no idea how to fix this, but I have forever been labeled
So
a liar.
on August 25th, what you're saying is on August 25th when you told us that you had not disclosed this?
No, what I said was...
And then you're saying on July 17th you had disclosed it?
No.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that I wrote this article before I filed anything anywhere.
Okay.
Okay? And I did write the article
And had submitted it to the Alaska Dispatch.
So you
before I ever came here.
Okay.
Okay.
Before I ever visited this table, before I filed anything, before there was anything
And
stamped
then
and
you came
received.
to us and told us that,
Since I filed this notice, it's quoted right here. Upon, quote, upon filing the notice of potential violation, I have not made any immediate outreach nor attempted to make issue of these claims. I was very explicit. Once I filed these things, I shut my
see what
mouth
you're
and turned
saying.
away from all of that.
so you made a disclosure prior to filing, then you filed, and once you filed, you didn't make a disclosure.
And
That's
so
what
it's
you're
not a
saying.
disclosure before the fact. What I
I
did
see.
beforehand was I wrote an article, and the response from that article was, hey, you should file. And so I came in here and did. And so I didn't make a disclosure because there was no matter. But then there was a matter. I shut up. But now I'm labeled a liar because of this letter. And it's really sad. And I am more than happy in all of the cases to stand up at the beginning of the meeting and say, hey, I filed, and they threw it out because I was found to have disclosed. But I'm not a liar. You know, I was very clear when I walked into this room. Since I realized and read that there's this cause, and if you look back at the record, there was another matter.
There was another disclosure.
And that-
email exchange,
with
which
the-
we discussed.
Right.
Right. And that one was fully discussed on the record,
Right.
and we were okay with that.
And- but you understand.
But then when it came to light that there was this article that had been published,
Before the fact.
and the way we were reading your statement was that
I know.
you were saying that you hadn't disclosed it when in fact you had.
And I hadn't. Upon filing, as soon as I realized, as soon as the mayor's attorney called me or emailed me and said, hey dude, you can't do this, that changed the game for me. I didn't understand, and I shut up. I was silent after that. I didn't say a word. And it's just a matter of, I can't control the media. I submit something to them and they take their own darn time. And again, I'm okay. You guys threw it out, even though it's the most blatant act against the public good that I've ever witnessed. That's your call. But to have called me a liar when even in this letter it says, my quote is, upon filing. I just think
Which matter is this?
it is notice of potential violation
This is,
2010.
there was two members of a committee.
Which one was it? I'm sorry, notice of potential violation?
2010-2. I'm just being harmed because I came forward to do the right thing.
And the article was published on what date?
17 July. Oh no, excuse me, 19 July. And I filed on 17 July, but I had sent them the article before, even the 17th. And I can understand why when an attorney comes in here and says, hey, look, I can see how you could see that, but really, I don't know how to make this right, but I really don't want to be called a liar on this record. My reputation and my ethics mean something. And they're using it against me. The individual, one of the two named individuals, has disclosed to the Fairview president and secretary that this was filed and that I'm a liar.
Well, an individual who is the subject of a complaint has the right to disclose that.
That is in fact the case, and
Right.
that is, it came back to me through that channel that I am now being labeled a liar because of this document.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's, it's the nature of the game, of course. He's engaged in his own campaign for whatever ends. I won't speak for him, but this matter is now full circle, and I am being labeled a liar in the public square because of an action that I believe is a misstatement of the case, officially documented by this body. I mean, it's right there, upon filing the notice. That's the quote you selected out of the record, and that's perfect, because that is the truth.
Well, why is it that when we brought up the other disclosure about the email exchange, you didn't alert us to the fact that there was also a published article on the
Because
subject?
I didn't even think about it, because this was after that. You understand? That was all pre-filing. It wasn't a matter to me because it was over and done with. And so it was, that's what actually, someone called me and said, if you witness this in this way, you need to go to the ethics board. I just didn't even think about it. And again, I'm not holding you from calling me or saying that I disclosed, because in the fact of the course of your business, that's fair. Because I can see how that perception is true, but calling me, in essence, saying that I have misstated, when I clearly did not misstate the case, upon filing.
May I ask a question about dates? Because I think I've written them down.
Yeah.
Okay. The article was published on the 19th of July.
And I filed on the
And
17th.
then somebody asked you, after reading the article, that you filed before.
You're right. So here I am misstating again. I don't know. I can't keep track of all this.
Oh, I'm just trying to get my dates straight.
I don't even know. I haven't seen the filing. And it's been a year. This is, all I know is upon filing, I did not mention this to anyone because I was upbraided by the municipal attorney and I sat here and had to talk with you guys about it. That's when I shut my mouth. Maybe it was, I don't even know the date I filed. I know I don't have that with me. I have a whole stack of other things.
August 25th, I think.
No, the date,
No?
it's when it was received. It was,
Date's
It
stamped.
was July. I don't know that date.
We can find out.
And again, I'm not saying that I didn't disclose here because I'll accept the fact. In fact, you guys, this body has the authority, even had I disclosed, if you had decided that something was awry, could have investigated on your own merit. I shouldn't be the matter here. I should be, but I did not lie to you. I did not misstate. And this letter harms me. And so I leave that to you guys to decide what is to be done, if nothing, if anything. But that individual has in fact told the president of the community council and the secretary of the community council that this was filed and that I'm a liar. And that it was dismissed because it was found to be false. So, what's happening now is, this body is being used to forward an excuse for the misdeeds on the public trust. And I do believe it was the 17th that I filed. I can tell you, I have a calendar. It was that Friday. It was 5 minutes to close of business.
Do you have that on your computer?
Oh, yeah.
Can I see that?
So, yeah, no, it was the 16th. It was the 16th. But in fact, the dates work out. It was in the writing of this thing before I had submitted it. Its publication date was the 19th. I had submitted it in the week of the 11th, which is the same week that I came in and filed. And an individual who had read that document between the 11th and the 14th there had said, you should file.
And
so,
this was somebody at the Alaska Dispatch read
Yes.
this? Okay.
yes. It was an article. And I can't say exactly who it was that told me this. This is a year ago. And again, my records are at home. My mind is fuzzy. And I'm not asking you to reopen the case on my account. If you were to reopen that case, it would be of your own. But what I am asking is that that record is clarified. Because that record harms me. And it is not, in fact, how it went. I said upon filing, I shut up. But that reads it.
Well, you can understand how it would appear to us that on July 16th you filed the notice and on July 19th
Right.
an article is published.
Right, and I do understand and appreciate that dilemma. And again, I'm not asking you to undo, but I said, and in fact, it was after the municipal attorney said, and we had to have that conversation where he said, I don't know what's going to happen. You need to shut up. And I was told by the clerk even, hey, don't talk about this even to your mother. Then I shut up. But I can't make the media act in 2 days, and I couldn't undo what had been done.
Why not?
Yeah.
So you file this, so you decide to file a notice, and then you in fact file it.
Yes.
And it looks like your published commentary comes out 3 days later. Dispatch isn't a paper.
But
It's
they
not
have
a paper. It's a
I
web
don't.
paper.
I
So you
don't
couldn't
publish
have-
it to them.
So you could not have contacted the editor or all these people who urged you to file your complaint and
Again.
say, hey, by the way, don't file that.
This-
and then you come here
I
and
didn't
you never
understand.
mention it.
I didn't
You
understand.
never mention it when we ask you over and over again. Have you disclosed? Oh no. I
That's
haven't
not how
done
it
any
went.
kind of
That in
research.
fact that wasn't how it went. That's again, you're putting the same argument on it that I came in here and misstated to you. That is not the case. What happened is I said, once I filed this thing, I shut up. I
I
turned
have
away.
not made any media outreach.
Upon filing.
Upon filing the notice of potential violation, I have not made any media outreach or attempted to make issue
Well,
of it.
And that's what I meant, is the day I filed, I shut up.
And that it's fine that you meant that and you parsed your words very carefully. But something deception and misrepresentation can happen in many, many ways. And that looks like you're trying to do a legalistic parsing
It's
to
not.
cover yourself.
That's not the
And
way it
that's
worked.
That's still misrepresentation.
That's not the way it
The
worked.
simple fact of the matter is you came in here and you were not forthcoming about having sent this editorial in, and you were not
Days
forthcoming,
before.
and you were not forthcoming that it had been published. You were not. right?
It
Misrepresentation.
It wasn't even in my mind because I stopped. I didn't go to the Daily News or the Anchorage Press. It would have taken them a
How
week to
was-
print this stuff.
Barbara, how is this published? This becomes the public document? This is not,
I can't remember if that one was.
It shouldn't be
it
published.
should-
It should have gone just to the people who received the complaint. That's how the process works.
so how,
Yeah.
how broadly was that distributed, do you know?
I,
mean, it
at
has-
the moment, I don't know. I will check and see if we can find out, but I don't think that it would have been.
It would only have gone to those
Right.
two individuals and this body and me.
Well, this doesn't show a CC to anybody. Then, this is Jeff.
Hi, sorry. The request for advisory opinion, 2011-3, the gentleman's on the phone and he wanted to attend but didn't know about the meeting.
I told him about the meeting. But,
Yeah.
Okay.
Nor here nor there, but
He can come down here. Yeah.
can
We'll
it
go.
be, the item, has it been heard yet?
No.
I'll tell him to come.
Yeah.
I would offer that, Mr. Kelly, respectfully through the chair, that what's happening now is a legalistic parsing of the words, and that I came in here in good faith, and that I came in here as a citizen, and that I continue to bring matters that I see, and that I am not actually being a subversive in any way, and that although I can see how one would see how that is the way it played, that is not in fact what I brought to this table. What I brought to this table was good faith. The moment I was instructed by the attorney to shut up, I did. And that's, I come and stand before you humbly as a citizen in good faith and belief that the trust the public puts in your hands. And that's all. And this matter has been disclosed by this individual to two public members of the Fairview Community Council because that matter is coming back to me. And that's all. I mean, you can think whatever you want of me. That's neither here nor there. I am not the matter here in this case. Although, by one reading, yes, I am.
Okay, well, we can look into where this was published, how it is being circulated publicly, and think about whether.
Yep, and that's all I ask. That's all I ask. Because think about what is happening to me now. Not in the big public eye, but in the very narrow public eye. And how this is being used. And was that your intention?
At the time we wrote this letter, we believed there was a misrepresentation of information.
And I understand that. This is...
Yeah. I know.
Did you come back and submit? This is the first time you've come.
This is the very first time I've come back with the question of 2010-2.
So as soon as you saw this, you didn't say, "Oh no, that's not how."
No, because I just didn't, I don't want to react emotionally and angrily, and I figured I just received this alone. But it in fact went to the complainants, or the recipients of the complaint, and now it is in fact being utilized as a tool to state, no, there was no violation. In fact, that guy's a liar.
Right.
That's what's
We
happening
didn't
now.
address the issue of whether there was a violation.
I know you didn't, and you were very carefully wording that.
Mhm.
And, you know, my impulse is to share this with the two individuals who have heard the mistruth about me and say, hey, this is what actually happened. Here's the record. He disclosed this to you. Now read it. It doesn't say that he wasn't found to be in violation. It doesn't say he was cleared. It says they decided not to decide on this matter because I've disclosed and I lied. That's the impact of these words. Your words are very important. And I'll leave that. I don't want to take up any more of your important time. Is there any way someone like Jacqueline could forward the document to me now?
I can do it.
Okay, it'd be great. Thank you. And if you have no questions for me, I'll... that'd be-
Nothing further right now. No.
This is how thick the docket has become on the questions of this important matter. It's now 30 documents long, a much bigger issue. A much bigger issue.
Okay, special orders. None? Old business, notice of potential violation 2011-4. Is that the one that she just came in on?
No, she said
No.
3.
No, this was the advisory opinion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is this is in your, do you need to?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was-
Oh, here, I'm sorry.
My opinion is this one here that we're looking at right here.
Okay.
'Cause this is
No.
not numbered.
No, okay. So on notice of potential 2011-4, I believe we need to go into executive session to determine whether we have jurisdiction to accept the case. I think that's where we were at as of our last meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved?
I'll second.
All in favor? We're going into executive session at 3:25.
Resuming open session.
Do I have a motion on notice of potential violation 2011-4?
Madam Chairwoman, I move that we dismiss the motion.
Okay.
Dismiss or not accept?
Not accept.
Return.
Return.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Request for advisory opinion 2011-3.
Okay. I guess I'm supposed to call this person.
Before we call him.
Okay.
Sorry. So this is one of the times where I should disclose for you guys again that my wife works for Jermaine Dunnigan and Owens, which represents the school district.
Okay.
So given that this is a legal issue that will involve the school district, I talked to her today. She does not personally work on these kinds of issues, and were this particular issue to become litigated, she would not be, to the best of her knowledge, she would not be involved in any legal action for the school district on it. But you should know that her firm works for the school district, and she does represent the school district on a number of matters, but she does not represent them on these particular issues. That's my disclosure, and I will leave it up to you to decide if that's a significant enough conflict.
For this particular matter that we
Yeah,
were
for this
discussing.
particular matter, right?
For 2011-3.
In my opinion, so noted, keeps seated. You thought you'd get out early.
Oh.
That's my own personal opinion, however.
Oh, and I'm also a member of Team
Okay,
Sports Local
Mr. Miller
959.
is out there. I'm not sure shouldn't this be open session?
Yeah.
We are in
We're in
open
open
session.
session.
Okay, but he is
Oh,
here.
Oh, I thought you were going to call him on his cell phone.
Okay,
Oh,
well,
but,
he's right
but
there.
confidentiality has been waived.
Excuse me?
Confidentiality's been waived?
Yeah, but shouldn't this be, your disclosure be an open session?
It is. It's on the
We're in
record.
open
Okay,
session.
but we've excluded Mr. Miller.
Ah, I
Well,
see
what
what
if
you're saying.
somebody gets
I see what you're saying.
Mr. Miller?
And Barbara, Chris is waiting for a document from you.
Okay, well, I can get it when we're done. I mean, he knows that.
Oh,
Okay, but don't today.
I think
Mr. Miller? Mr. Miller?
Barbara, just as a point of clarification, the letter that you're sending to Mr. Constant is which one?
3.
Yeah, and it's not the letter that we sent to the,
Well, that's what I was going to clarify. Before
Responded.
let somebody else give it to him, I want to clarify what the rules are, but he was the one who brought the action, so. But I'm going to read carefully whether he gets that one or not.
he doesn't get the, as
Okay.
my understanding, he doesn't get the one that we wrote to the respondent.
Okay, I will,
That he gets the short version that Dee wrote.
okay,
The short version letter.
okay.
Okay.
Okay, and so to,
Hi.
well, to repeat my disclosure, my wife works for a law firm that represents the Anchorage School District, but she does not personally work on their labor issues, and would not, if this were to come to some sort of litigation, she would not be directly involved in this particular issue. However, I'll leave it to the board to determine if that's a significant conflict of interest on this matter.
Okay.
This isn't gonna come to any litigation, I'm just looking for an opinion, so. And that helps you out. We're not looking to litigate with the school district about this issue, we're just trying to get information.
Anything can turn to litigation.
Spoken by a lawyer.
Well, at this point, I don't see it as being a substantial enough conflict to exclude discussions of this.
I
And
accept
if it
ruling.
gets-
I'll be heading home now. Oh, you said not?
Not exclude, no.
I concur.
But do you have an opinion on
No,
it?
no.
I don't
She
think-
doesn't work in this subject. She works for a firm who represents ASD.
And she does work.
And she's an
She
associate or
does
a
do,
partner?
she's associate.
Oh, okay.
And she does do work with ASD,
No, an
mostly in
associate.
terms of special
She's
ed,
not economic.
special ed
Oh,
type
okay.
issues.
Benefit in.
So your representation is she does not work on labor issues with respect to ASD.
That's right, that's right.
And then I would.
Given that
recommend
you've
a
waived
conflict.
confidentiality, Mr. Miller, I ran this scenario by her, and she said that's not, she's like, I've not worked with your union, even though an associate of hers does, and that. she's
JDO?
not- Yeah,
J-
JDO, yeah, right. So,
Yeah, because, you know.
I think it's Sarah Josephson, right? Is
On the
working
one
together.
side, you get the folks that said, oh, that's how they will litigate against us, and then we use Chuck Dunnigan all the time for,
Right. Yeah, right, so it's a funny situation, so.
Small town.
Well, you might be able to give some input
I was
then.
gonna say,
She
Mr.
works,
Miller,
she,
you-
the main partner
it's
she
not
works
your
with is
decision, but-
Howard Trickey.
Yeah.
well, I know who he is, and he does work for the district, but like I said, it's mostly research work on unrelated to labor issues.
Right, right.
More when they have the lawsuits. Well, I think, because my wife used to work for this district also, and she had to provide a lot of information to Howard back in the day. And it was more on stuff where they were dealing with vendors and things like that, and so they were looking for that kind of information.
And can I ask, even though it's not,
209-1.
it's not your decision whether Dr. Kelly has a conflict, do you have any input about it as the person who's bringing the request?
Him being here or not has no bearing on with me. Even if his wife was working in labor issues, it wouldn't bother me having him sit in here. I think that this is gonna be straightforward. It's, once again, we're not litigating with the district, even though I know anything can be litigated. What that I'm trying to find out is that we have a negotiated agreement that says that violations of the law and code, so they can't be in there. And that
Right.
we would have to, and so we're in the midst of negotiations right now, and this is an issue that's came up. And we're trying to find out, while there was a ruling a couple of years, an advisory opinion on it. I listened to the tapes and stuff, and I, they only heard one side of that issue, and so I wanted an opportunity to come down and have folks, or at least be involved in that process to some extent, so certainly whatever this board decides is gonna be the end of it as far as I'm concerned. And I've already told the district that too.
So your role,
I'm a
In
business
the-
representative with the Teamsters.
okay.
And by the way, he happens to be a former employee, but that's not the
Yeah,
role
I worked for
he's
30 years for the Anchorage School
coming in
District
for us.
and retired from there some 5 years ago, six years
So
ago.
basically you're double dipping.
Yes, sir.
It's okay, I'm just.
And
I think this would also apply to municipality. We have 959 members working for the municipality, don't we, as well?
okay, I didn't hear you.
We have 959 members working for the municipality as well.
Yes.
Yes.
So this would apply more broadly, I would think, than just the school district, but also to all the NOA contracts.
I think the concern here, Mr. Miller, is that the jurisdiction of this board is limited to current or former employee, and a list in which you may or may not be included, and.
Yeah, well, that was, something that I disclosed right away when that I saw the form that you fill out for this, that I am not a employee of the district. And, I don't know if it was Seth or you that I
So-
talked to at the time, and they said, well, fill it out as a former employee.
Marissa, my
And you were
concern
you were
here-
never a member of any municipal authority or something?
I'm sorry?
Were
He's
you
a
ever a
former-
member of a municipal authority?
No, just just an
Or
employee.
current?
He is
or
a former employee.
Oh, so, well, so where is that though? That's
That's,
80A, right?
80A.
But it's, I guess the hang-up is advisory opinions are as to how we would advise you on what behavior or action you should take, so the action involved would be your
No,
negotiating.
no, no, I'm just trying to get you guys to rule on whether, what the issue is that employees working there now that are 959 members have an ability, based on contract language, to have
And not
part of their
about-
wages transferred to a political action committee, the Teamsters Political Action Committee. And they're trying to find out if that's a violation of the ethics ordinance under that, whatever it's cited there,
1-5-025I.
I1A. And like I said, I listened to the tapes from the last meeting just recently, and I mean, what concerned me was that I'm not real sure if an accurate picture was painted, or they talked about a lot of coercion and stuff like that for employees, and it was a concern of the districts that there might be some strong arming going on to get people to contribute money and stuff like that, which I don't know if that had any bearing on the decision that was made or not. I don't know. Certainly I don't believe it to be true, but even if it was true, what difference that would make as far as whether there's a violation or not, or whether the district's expended any funds. And I guess my biggest question is that you take this all in context under the whole deal, and it talks about the district actually expending funds, participating in campaigns or things like that, and what that they're doing is transferring an employee's compensation. It's to me no different than
My recollection is at the time that we looked at the amount of municipal employee time that goes into making those transfers happen. I think that was one of the elements that we looked at.
Well, I know that question was asked on the
Was
tape.
it?
They said that they didn't have a response for it because they hadn't done. There's like
Was it heard
3
over a
people or
period of?
5 people total that utilize this program. Now, I'm not going to say that there couldn't be more if it's there. Up to 190 people could use it, because that's how many members there are in this bargaining group. And so up to that many. But right now, I think there's either 3 or 5 total. And it's not really that popular.
And I don't know if the other members of this board know there was a previous decision. Did you get that?
I got it right here. in front of me.
Okay.
So, but once again, the decision said based on the information that the district provided them, and that's the only information that I know that was provided. I certainly never had an opportunity or notice of it. Maybe that's my fault for not looking it up. I barely got here for this one, so.
Well, in part, what happened was, unlike, when someone files, a complaint that there's been a violation of the ethics code, then you get something that sort of looks more like a kind
Yeah.
of juridical procedure in which both sides are brought in. And
Uh-huh.
for these requests for advisories, we usually don't have one side versus another side. It's usually someone coming in saying, I'm thinking about doing this, am I allowed to do it?
Right.
And what we say in the letter that we send out to the ruling that we say is like, look, this is based on the facts as you say.
Right.
And if they're wrong, then our letter doesn't have weight. And it's for those kind of reasons we usually don't bring in other side type people, because we usually say to the people coming to the table, it's on you to make sure you're being accurate, or you might get burned for it later. So there was no effort to try to exclude you, but that's why that happened.
Yeah.
That's why you didn't wind up being.
Yeah, no, I
brought to the
and I
table.
don't have a problem. Like I say, the effect is that it, because of other language in the negotiated agreement, it says if that there is anything in this agreement that is contrary to law,
remember that, yeah.
federal, state, any of those kind of things, that it can't be in there.
I
and we're back at it again. I mean, you know, we didn't meet and take it out the last time. Although they sent me the ruling, we didn't get together and take it out of there. And so
And I think
I really don't want it out of there, you know.
The negotiations
Yeah.
are up for the.
And they're ongoing right now. And so, while I understand that it's advisory, the district's certainly relying on it, saying that it's a violation of the law, and that we can't have it in there. And so that's kind of where we're at.
The file, I brought out the file. It's,
This is the file here?
I don't know where it ended up.
That's it right there, yeah.
That's on the table.
So we looked at 27, it says, but we didn't cite that in the opinion. Verse 20, it's in .0207.
Which number are you looking at?
2009 one, I think.
Okay, that's the opinion, I mean, that's the opinion number.
Divert or permit the diversion of municipal personnel time. Personnel, municipal services, vehicles, equipment, materials, or other property for purposes unrelated to municipal business.
Yeah, and as I recall from the letter, it was the political side, right? That it was the political stuff that wound up being the concern, right? That while potentially not significant, that there were municipal resources being used, and those resources were going to be
Right, it was like
used.
fill the boot issue, right? If they're diverting municipal time.
Yeah,
How's
'cause it
that
wasn't
any
just the-
different than transferring an employee's money, using people's time to write them a check, or using its wages, right? And how does that, the district is not endorsing or any candidates, they don't even know where that money goes. All they are is a vehicle for moving the money electronically for an employee, no different than if they did direct deposit to a financial institution or something else. And so they don't, other than because it's a political action committee of the Teamsters, you know, they have no knowledge of what that funding goes to or anything else. And so to say that they are supporting, endorsing, opposing, or anything else, a political candidate, based on that fact, you know, an employee uses their cash however they want it. You could say the same thing about just writing them a check, and the money that you're expending doing that.
In the request, this is the request for the advisory opinion. Depending on how many people use the option, time and effort would be needed in the district's payroll department to implement the employee's deduction. The payroll department would need to manually ensure that the deduction did not exceed the hourly employee's net pay during the pay period where the employee worked fewer hours. The department would also have to input requests to start and stop these deductions in a timely manner, total each pay period's deductions, transmit the total amount deducted to the PAC, either by district check or by electronic transfer directly from the district's account. The total cost of the district would depend on how many people use the option and how often they made changes to their deductions. In terms of the overall district budget, the cost of these services would not be large, but it would be more than an insignificant addition to payroll department's total time and effort.
Do they, not necessarily speaking on behalf of you, Mr. Miller, but did they mention anything about, you know, they do a lot of payroll deductions for
No other
a lot of
private
stuff.
entity is allowed to access the district's payroll deduction system.
No other, I'm
For
sorry.
example, an employee could not have $10 per month sent to their church or the Sierra Club.
But they could have $10 a month sent to Planned Parenthood through United Way or something like that, which is,
Yeah, that's
without a
important.
doubt, a political organization. As a
So
matter of fact, the
it
district actively
To
promotes using
United Way.
United
Yeah.
Way, I'm sorry?
It
Yes,
does
there
go
is
to
a
United
United
Way.
Way, I believe. deduction. I'm going to quick step out there's a new P&P on this procedure and
Okay.
policy that's about 10 pages long that elaborates on all of this. And let me go, I printed it up upstairs. I'm going to ask one of your staff just to bring it out.
Just on a side note, and I don't know how it is for the municipality, but a lot has changed in the last 2 years
Mm-hmm.
on ETFs, or excuse me, on electronic transfers between banks and individuals, and so procedures that were,
I mean, they're not as cumbersome.
they're not as cumbersome, and they're not as cumbersome for the individual either. So an individual could get their paycheck and then do it themselves without ever seeing, after once setting it up, they could do it from their own bank too. So I think a procedure, truly banking procedures have changed.
I think this is the policy she just got your print out. Maybe. So I think we did look at this last time too.
Yeah, that's right, and that's why, as I recall, we wound up not ruling so much, we wound up not ruling on whether it was related to municipal services or not, because there's all this United Way stuff.
Right.
And we
It was
decided
related to
not
the
really to
election.
get into that. But it was the political
Campaign
angle that we
political.
wound up pursuing. Yeah, and the Planned Parenthood thing, I think as I recall, what was represented to us at any rate was that Planned Parenthood has a specific political action committee that is separate from Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
So at least, so yeah, you're right, does it spill over? Maybe it does. But at least that's the way it was represented. Again, these advisories are very dependent on how things are represented to us, and that's why our letter very clearly says, if you have not represented things accurately, then the advice is, well, it's worth what you paid for it, right?
Expend municipal funds for the support, opposition, or endorsement of candidates.
Yeah, so I guess that's a question. Does the union's political action committee endorse candidates?
Of course they do.
Yeah.
That's what we thought.
They support, I mean, they don't just endorse candidates, but yeah, that's one thing that they do.
What was the outcome of the Fill the Boot issue? They revised the code to allow for it?
I remember, they revised the code, but I think there was to be another review. I don't know what the answer is on that. I don't find out.
Yeah, was
You guys
America
have-
designate certain,
And no
I thought it
official.
was charitable.
It
Well,
has to
and no,
be- each one has to be approved, I think, separately.
and no official equipment could be used.
Yeah.
And certainly every administration things change, but in the past, when David Otto was the head of the Labor Relations Department, I know that we have, written authorization from him that the Teamsters could do that with the municipal employees also, because they do represent some of them, and so, I'm not the representative of the municipal employees, I am of the school district, so I don't know if that there are any employees using that or not, but I think somebody said it may have implications, broader, it may very well, I don't know.
yeah, it could.
And I don't know if any other unions have the same kind of a situation going on.
This is just a copy, it's a 10-page PMP, and I haven't looked through it for this particular issue.
This is new?
This is, after the Fill the Boot issue, this is what the actually municipal attorney drafted for the mayor to try to fill in the blanks versus that broad, don't divert municipal resources.
No,
It's trying to
yeah.
set a policy. But it might give some information to you, Mr. Miller.
This would be a 501c6, the PAC, right?
No, I doubt it, because it's a political.
I mean, as opposed to C3. C3.
Oh, okay, yes,
yeah,
okay,
C6.
yeah, it's not, I'm sure it's not tax exempt.
4. Is it 4?
I honestly don't.
4 or 6?
Well, 6 was something, at least in my understanding, was it was something that's, you know, that has a political, well, we know it's not a 3, but that's one of the things that they're saying very clearly that fundraising
And if you look at-
qualifies 501c3.
Section 8, the very last section, prohibitions, the following contributions are expressly prohibited, political contributions. So I guess, Mr. Miller, using your words, is a transfer of employee compensation, does that constitute a political contribution? Versus, well, I think what Mr. Miller was taking objection to was that's not an expenditure of municipal funds, because it's the employees' funds. So I think now the new question would be, is that a political contribution, however?
Well, as one who is prohibited from giving any political contributions.
Well, the policy and procedure, though, it wouldn't necessarily impact the contract, right? I mean, the contract terms would override the policy. Because the policy is not a code, but the contract terms couldn't override the code.
I would assume that the contract terms incorporate the terms, everything, P&Ps existing as of the time that contract was entered into. So the current contract, if it provided for this, probably couldn't override the new policy. Because it's a time and place issue.
Right,
If
but
the contract references the policies and says that the policies of the municipality will govern the contract.
Well, if it says that, but it doesn't really say that, right? It just says that general, and it can't go against
Yeah,
any
well,
other
once
laws.
again, this isn't a contract with the municipality, this is a contract with the school district itself. And the school district retains all rights except those that are expressly prohibited by law, or anything that would counter. The district doesn't have the right to violate the contract. So any rights that are given in the contract, the district policy could not override any rights that are given in the contract. With the municipality, generally what happens there is if when a contract is negotiated, the policies in place at that time
Exactly.
would be the policies that would govern it. If they changed them, and it changes any of the terms of the negotiated agreement, then the agreement would take precedence over a policy change. That would be that's my opinion, but.
Well, again, I absolutely agree with that rendition, but I think there's two issues. One is, as to municipal policies, the contract, the policies existing at the time of the contract are assumed that they've been dealt with by that contract. But then there's a second issue, just whether a municipality can make political contributions. See, that catch-all clause about has to be in compliance with all other laws. I'm concerned about the larger issues of, then it gets back to expenditure. What I'm thinking out loud is that all municipal expenditures have to be for public purpose, and they'd have to be nonpartisan, that's sort of an overlying constitutional something issue. It's in our state constitution. But would the expenditure of, would the transfer of employee contribution really fall under sort of a public purpose expenditure of municipal funds? I can see that where you.
Yeah, well, and my only question about this really is when it's talking about expending municipal funds for the support, opposition, or endorsement. If you go on, expend funds for paid advertisement, permit administrative, all these things talk about, in my opinion of what it says, is the district actually expending these funds and endorsing somebody, or expending these funds for paid advertisements. In other words, would the district be able to have somebody cut a check to an organization, and part of that organization's purpose is advertising or promoting a particular position? And I think that all these things, when you look at them, in my opinion only, is talking about the district actually participating. In this case, it's a payroll issue. You know, they're doing the same thing they do when they direct your funds to a financial institution. They are doing the same thing they do when that they direct the dues to the Teamsters. While that the Teamsters itself is separate from the Teamsters Political Action Committee, in my opinion, what they are doing is just transferring funds for the employee, and what the employee does with those funds is really the employee's business, and it opens up that larger picture, because they're directing it to the organization the employee chooses. The employee could take the same money that they cut him a check for and go and spend it there. And so is the district expending funds for that in that roundabout way when that they write the employee the check?
Are you precluded from communicating with your members in any way?
No, my members?
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm perfectly legal for me to communicate with them.
So you would not be precluded from encouraging them to make a contribution to the Political Action Committee?
No, I would not be precluded from that. Matter of fact, I sell raffle tickets and everything else, anybody's interested.
Let me ask you this question, because this was one of the kind of, as I recall, this was like sort of one of the hypotheticals that we were kicking around. Like, what if the school district had an automatic pay contribution option to the Republican National Committee? Right?
They wouldn't get any money out of the school district.
Well, yeah, they might, like, I mean, the idea is like, right, I mean, so the school district has to spend money to set that up. So there's your municipal funds. And the municipal funds are being used to help collect money for an organization that, by its very nature, is a partisan and political organization. It seemed like, as I recall from the discussion that we had back then, like, that would be a violation of the code, it seemed to us. And then it is true, we kind of assumed, but I think rightly so, that the union's Political Action Committee is also a political organization that is endorsing candidates and spending money for them. And so that, I think, as I recall, that was sort of the analogy that we wound up thinking it through. The key, and this might be worth investigating, was that the school district represented to us that the money, the funds, or put it this way, the resources it would take in terms of personnel hours and the like to set up and monitor this transferring of the funds was not insignificant.
Yeah.
It
Well,
wouldn't
like I said,
necessarily be great, but it wasn't insignificant. And that was
there's
as
a
I recall-
potential for it not being insignificant.
Right.
There's only 3 people, it's either 3 or 5 people that participate in this.
But you still,
So-
a municipal individual still has to look at that, make sure it's set up, make sure it went through, and verify, and then if a new person joined in, then they'd have to set them up, and
That's
or
the
if
way
there was
this-
any changes.
That's the way the school district explained it to
Yeah.
us.
So
And
the payroll, human resources would still have to, there wouldn't be, granted, there wouldn't be a large,
Sorry about that.
there wouldn't be a large resource use,
Right.
but there would be some.
That's exactly how they represented
Yeah.
it to us. And as I recall, 'cause looking at the font of that letter, I may have written that letter.
Yeah,
As I
look,
recall
at the end of the
from
day, you might
discussion.
come up with the same exact determination. I guess I just wanted an
Right,
opportunity.
you want us to reconsider?
I'm certain, yeah, we can
Okay.
certainly
Yeah.
do that,
So-
because as I recall, the conceptual move that we wound up making, which we certainly could revisit, was that ASD using some of its resources to help collect money for a political organization was a violation of that section of the code that says you cannot divert municipal funds for basically partisan political activity.
And we're not questioning the,
It was a
questioning the donations by the individuals, we're looking at
the transfer
the
costs.
transfer
basically,
costs.
But it's true, it is a second order causality. You're absolutely right. What is clearly prohibited is ASD just giving money
Right.
to Lisa Murkowski's reelection. That's just clearly forbidden. So there is this question of what about the second order stuff? If we spend some money to help facilitate the collection of funds for a particular political organization, is that also? And that's the conceptual decision that we made back then. But that was a couple years ago. It's true, we didn't have your input, and we could certainly think it through again. I have no objection to that. But.
I agree.
I have one concern, and this all happened when I was out of town, and Dee and I disagreed on this. I thought that Mr. Miller should have had a current employee situated in the Teamsters file this, because I don't know that he technically meets the standing. But that's for you to determine.
Well, it is true. And I was just looking at that, and the code's not really clear, right? He is a former employee, and what does it say? It's 80.
How long have you held this current position?
Basically since I retired from the school district, so 6 years.
Okay, so in former employee, doesn't it usually within the last year or so? Because we were talking about when somebody transfers from one job to another.
Oh, but that's because of code.
I understand, but does he still meet the definition of former employee because of the 6 years that have passed?
He would for many other reasons.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
Retirement also.
Yeah, and in the advisory, it just doesn't really specify. I think that's sort of that's probably what was in mind when it got written, that some former employees are explicitly subject to the code. We just had the one, right? We had 1 year.
Well,
But
about actions that occurred while you were an employee, I think that's.
But it says, current or former employee may request written advice regarding applicability and interpretation of this chapter in a particular situation involving the inquirer. Which is you're negotiating
Yeah, when
a
I
new
was
contract, and you want to know if
employed,
it's
this
consistent with the
wasn't,
code. It's probably not exactly what they had in mind, but the language is certainly loose enough to
Yeah.
allow you. Or we can certainly have it
and like I
filed.
said, I mean, I gave full disclosure at the time that I was not a current
I think
employee.
we can work- I mean, 'cause
If
either
they had said, well, you can't do it, I certainly, I certainly could have got a current employee.
You certainly
to-
could have got a current employee,
to fill
or,
that.
to be honest, this actually is the very first time we've had a case where the next clause, which allows the municipal attorney or the municipal clerk to request, this is actually the first case we've had where it seems like that would have been another way that we could have done it, because here's a case where we have someone who, let's say you weren't even a former employee, you worked for the union. Here we have a case that is where the ethics code, an interpretation of the ethics code is very relevant. You maybe aren't subject to the code in the usual ways, and so this actually would be one of those venues where I think you would see the municipal clerk or the municipal attorney.
Yeah, just see, Mr.
bring-
Miller did contact me, and I referred him
Right.
over here.
Yeah, so I think that's a detail. I think we can work through that, and
When is the contract due to be finalized?
Well,
'Cause we don't
it keeps
work
going the
that
way it's
fast.
going. Maybe never, if we keep going, I don't know. We're working without a contract right now. I mean, it's expired, of course, we're still working under the terms of the old contract, but it expired at the end of June.
Okay. Because we have 15 minutes left in today's meeting. We would need to go into executive session to deliberate, and then, assuming we reached a decision today, it would take us some time to get an opinion out. I guess we probably wouldn't be getting back to you for potentially another month. If we didn't reach a decision today, it would be tabled to our next meeting,
Okay.
which is a month from now. Kind of a slow process,
Deliberative.
deliberative,
Okay.
because we're volunteers.
Well, I appreciate you guys hearing me, and if I
Yeah.
don't, if I don't get anything from you that says any different than what I did before, then I'll probably have to utilize the ruling that you had, and I'll
Mhm.
go with that.
We-
just wanted an opportunity to talk to you guys and just to make sure that you had full information as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
You might very well come up with the same decision, and if you do, you do. You know, like you said, it's not that hard for folks to get the money
Just do
there.
it.
Well, and that was my point of asking you whether or not you were precluded from communicating with your members,
No.
so that you could encourage them if you found it necessary to make contributions.
Would it be okay if we contacted ASD and asked them about the kind of costs that they're looking at nowadays in terms of setting up these kinds of transfer
Yeah.
programs and the like? Because you may be right, it could be that it is true in the last few years, this kind of stuff has become so commonplace.
Well, I know it
If they were
has
to-
for the individual, but not for the employer.
Right,
Oh.
right.
That
okay.
those really haven't changed as
Oh,
much.
okay.
As much. They have changed somewhat, but.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, I mean, you can call them up and ask them any questions you
wouldn't
want to.
mind,
I
then
I
ask
don't
them.
have a problem at
I
all.
mean, certainly, because that was, as I recall from our discussion, that was an important detail
Yeah.
that they were, that they said it was not. I mean, because obviously if you included insignificant costs, my goodness, I mean, all sorts of things happen on a day-to-day basis in the city where insignificant costs are, but they said it wouldn't be insignificant. We could double check that and say, has that situation changed? And
Yeah. Well, like I said, it has a potential if every employee wanted to make it. This has been a part of the agreement for probably 30 years.
right,
There was probably never more than 10 at any given time in the last 30 years. I'm sure the district will represent that it could be, based on the number of people that get into it, very expensive.
right.
And so.
Yeah,
So, that's what I was saying,
I'm trying not to be too partisan here, but
No,
in the
no,
last,
Representative, we need
in the
your
last
perspective.
few
No, that's-
rounds of negotiations, they've wanted this language out of there, and so
Right.
it was great that came along because it was an opportunity. What basically started was whether it was a violation of the district policy, and they never, I questioned them, and they never came back and ruled on it. While they did come to you guys, it was their policy, and they have not changed their policy. They haven't made it a violation of their policy, probably because it's sufficient that they believe it to be a violation of this. But I'm sure that you're going to get information that's going to say it's very cumbersome, it's very expensive. We got to spend, 30 hours a day doing it or something. I don't know. But anyway, go ahead.
Manual labor,
Ask them, yeah.
I guess-
Take the money by
to
hand.
give you-
Yeah.
To give you some sense of how our board works, we are pretty literal readers of the code.
Yeah.
So we read the words there and we pretty much stick to them, and we don't really go beyond. I think what we see is, what we're reading on the page. So I think if we were to find in your favor or the school district's favor, it would be strictly based on what we read here as what the rule is.
I trust that to be true, yeah.
Yeah, so, I think, I don't know. I mean, it's possible our view might change. There's
But-
different members of the board now that will
Yeah,
have more than
you're an
time.
attorney, you know that
But-
sometimes there's more than one
Yeah,
interpretation of
Yeah.
the words.
right.
Yeah.
No, that's right. And again,
And
to repeat,
sometimes
there
they're
was a
broadly
tricky
written and
conceptual, I
sometimes
think
they're
there was this tricky kind of conceptual issue of whether when a municipality is using funds to help create an avenue for contributions to an organization that is political, is that, when you look at the literal words, is that a violation? Because certainly the most literal reading of the words, I think, is aiming mostly at the idea of direct contributions by a municipal entity
Right.
to a political organization.
Right.
This is definitely a second order situation. It's not that ASD is directly contributing, but it is using some of its funds to help allow employees to contribute to a political organization. Is that a violation of that specific section of the code? That was, as I recall, the kind of conceptual issue that we had to wrestle with. So this was not, as I recall, a real black and white.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Oh, well, you
for
recall better than me. You just listened to the tapes.
Marissa,
Mhm.
can I ask a question for framing our discussion with the school district? Are these contributions tend to be $1 every pay period, or is it, we have a special request, can you ask them to put $50 in this time?
Now it's like $15 a month or something like that.
But it's recurring.
$9 a month.
So if you set it up once, does it just run itself at that point?
Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
it
that's
doesn't,
it.
yeah, it doesn't change. The employees set it up one time, and unless they revoke it,
Yeah.
I haven't heard of anybody going down saying, oh, I want to give you guys more. Just set it up and.
You haven't
that's
been
pretty much-
persuasive enough.
Was that, yeah. Well, we tried. All right, well, I
It's just
appreciate it
tough,
once
especially in this
again.
economy, to ask for more money for.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, that's all the questions. Appreciate you guys letting me come down, and thanks for holding it
thank
up
you
for
for
me.
coming.
All right.
Yep.
So, if if you make a decision, will I hear about it sooner, or will I hear that we didn't make a decision? It's gonna be,
I'll contact you tomorrow,
Okay,
we'll let you
okay.
know where in the process this all is.
okay. Because like I say, if it's gonna be next month, then I probably will just use the information that they've already got there. And not that I don't want you to make the ruling on it, I certainly want that to happen, but,
Okay.
all right, thanks a lot.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Dr. Kelly, if you look, you probably did write this letter because the letter's not dated.
Because my words are timeless. Are the Platonic dialogues dated?
Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
No, you're not saying adjourn.
Can I ask, why are we going into executive session? I think this board uses
was
this.
this
Oh,
our-
confidentiality's been waived.
Has it? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not in the right place here. What is the rules on advisory opinions? We just hear these on the record?
Yeah, unless, if they've waived, advisories can be confidential.
This is waived.
It's waived.
Well, what is people's sense of the issue then?
My sense of the issue is that nothing has changed since the previous board in 2009. That the way I read the code, the way I personally read the code, that this would be precluded.
I agree with that.
Not that some very valid concerns have been brought forward.
I disagree.
Oh, wow, we're actually going to disagree on something?
I think we relied on the wrong section of the code the first time. I think 25I1A, expenditure of municipal funds, seems to me like it fits more under 20A7. So I think we come to the same conclusion, but I
Just a different
Oh,
code.
different reasoning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and my recollection is the reason why we didn't, then there was some sense of the board. In fact, were you on the board then? No, you must have been. This is what you said then, too. And what I said then was...
What you
Could
said
you play the
then,
tape?
what you said then is
Look
that
at all this other stuff. This is going to be a rat's nest. It sounds like a lot like our last
we,
conversation.
it
This is
was-
going to be a rat's
we
nest.
don't want to open up a can of worms.
Can you, you have
But
the
now
mayor's
that
reelection
the-
campaign, you've got.
Exactly.
But now that the can of worms has been opened and dealt with in this policy, then why don't we just point to what it really is? Right?
Well, this policy does not affect the school district. Let's
No.
Be that clear in that.
Well, that's true, though.
It doesn't? It's
There's some
not
municipal
overriding the
resources.
school district? Just like the ethics board?
See, the policy allows for fundraising for Planned Parenthood and everyone else in the world.
But for tax exempt
Right.
nonprofit.
But it has to be a tax
Right.
exempt nonprofit.
So-
and-
So this would not allow for this as a fundraising activity,
Right.
like United Way or something, like the diversion.
Well, but that's
Right.
what Marissa's saying, is that what we
Okay.
lacked 2 years ago was a way of untangling the United Way stuff
From this.
And we decided back then that it was just gonna be a
Right,
real
that
rat's
if
nest if we
we-
start wading through the umbrella groups of the United Way
If we use
contributions.
this provision, that it could nix everything, potentially.
Well, but would that mean, but are we saying then though that the ASD's United Way contribution stuff would then have to be approved by the mayor?
You know, Barbara, you seem very sure of your answer. ASD employees are subject to the ethics code. The question is, this is a
Right.
mayoral directive. The mayor promulgates this.
Right.
I certainly think this is a guidance type document.
Right. But it's in response to new statute, right? I mean, or to
No,
new
no, it
ordinance,
was
wasn't
trying
it?
to, no, it was simply trying to interpret, or try to flesh out what
Fill the
this
void,
meant.
yeah.
Yeah, the void because it was too difficult.
Oh, I thought the policy was trying to explain, because the assembly passed this ordinance, right? That the
They,
mayor could approve.
no,
certain-
they tried to pass an ordinance that would allow certain groups to
Didn't
do
get
it and
passed.
then not, so I think it did not get passed. And so the
okay.
mayor instead put this policy into effect.
Oh, I see,
For
I
it, which
see.
affects municipal employees.
Okay.
But not school district.
And I don't know, Barbara seems sure of that, I don't even know if it's
Because it
in
refers
piece.
to the municipal manager, but if you look on page 3, the highlight area, it's kind of, they're still figuring out the United Way situation. So,
Well, I think this provision is overly broad. 20A7, and screams for interpretation.
She was, my God, she's gonna put down some
Yeah, right.
legacy
Well,
here.
yeah,
She wants a letter with her
Thank
name
you,
on it.
Justice Scalia. After your literalist reading, we read it literally. I'm like, who's the we? I, for one of the most, I think one of the most common phrases I say here is, I think the spirit or the principle behind this part of the code is, I'm about as unliteral as it gets.
You're exactly right, but that's what led to 3 or 4 ordinances, amendments laid on the table, work sessions, a huge amount of public testimony. And because the assembly could not collectively agree, the mayor did his thing as to municipal
Right.
employees.
Well, I recall, that's why we had the school district come in. We actually said, what's your policy by which you say the United Way stuff gets to count as municipal business? They said, oh, well, look, and they actually laid out criteria. It has to be that they're nonprofit organizations that contribute to the health and welfare of the citizens of Anchorage, that is direct municipal concern. And so it is part of municipal business. I think in the past, we've also ruled that
Yes.
municipal tourism, or,
Yes.
right, that
Mhm.
counts as,
Yes.
tourism issues count as municipal business.
Right.
And so it's relatively strict in the sense that it's got to be nonprofit, health, welfare type issues, and anything outside of that, we're not counting as, and to be honest, we kind of bought that at the time, or
Mhm.
some of us bought that at the time.
Municipal
It's a United-
business, yeah, absolutely. I thought it could be broadly defined.
Literally.
Literally. This way.
But at any rate, to make a long story
You're
short,
right,
but it's the
right.
same,
If
no
we
one's
had-
changing their mind
If
on
we
this.
had done a literal reading of this at the time, which apparently we didn't, you're right, expend municipal funds wouldn't get us there, huh?
Well, I think the concern was it would get us too much, right? That we would wind up having to say, this is out, and potentially all the United Way stuff is out, that all of this stuff has been, now we're going to review, or potentially be subject to reviewing all of this.
We could be the review committee if.
And then there's people out there that would like that, just to all be out.
That's
Mhm.
and since there was a
Right.
sense among some of us that the partisan activity provision of the code was what also was maybe a problem here.
Yeah.
Since it was more crystal clear what's a political organization and what's not, even though you have some gray areas, it's a lot more clear to be able to say, yeah, this is it's a packet that endorses
So we
candidates.
told them it was a violation and they didn't take it out. They left it in.
Because
you
because they
didn't
were
date it?
they were
I don't think they
They were-
just are rewriting the contract now, so they were probably already in the contract.
That's right. Then they came to us. It was this is already in the contract. We are not really contemplating taking it out, like some not honoring that element of the contract, in part because I think they feared litigation. That's why I had litigation on the mind for this. But I think they even said And this is what, when we got this one, I thought this is what must have happened, is that, but when we when the contract is up for renewal and renegotiation, we want to have some guidance on this particular issue. And so I'm not surprised to see that this is now what's happening. The contract is being renegotiated, and indeed,
They've left
ASD
it out.
has tried it out. Our advisory opinion said, look, we can't include this in the next contract. And it has, and the ASD themselves admitted the last time, it's been in the contract for a long, long time. This provision's been a part of the contract for some time.
I don't see a PAC as being related to municipal business.
And not with so few people being enrolled. I mean,
Even if there was 200, I mean.
it's still there. You're still putting some municipal money into it, so I think that.
Well, that's what we thought. There's some unavoidable transaction costs that basically the
And if
municipality
you have
pays.
if you have to use your own individual time and energy to donate to every other political group, I look at it as the same way. As
Well, that's why I was asking him, was he precluded from talking to his members?
Yeah.
And he's not, so he can still campaign and do this.
Okay, so do we want to revise our opinion or just say we come to the same conclusion under whichever provision we look at? And not change it and just stick with the old one? Do we stick with the old one or do we want to point to the new one? The different provision?
Or we could just do both.
Well, you could bring it up to date and actually have a dated letter. Well, I mean, that's actually kind of a. I mean, how can the municipality just go and say, well, look, this letter, and the guy goes, well, when was that written?
You know, I'd like to point out to you though that you have a copy of the letter. The original letter was date stamped by the clerk's office.
I have one that somebody
That's
printed
right,
off
huh?
their computers. What I
How's
have.
that? How's that? Put that in your pipe.
Do I have a motion?
I don't even know what it. My sense would just be to reaffirm the original letter, but if people want to add on the stuff about unrelated to, since it seems like the United Way stuff has not been entirely worked out yet, and I'm still not sure we want to get into that.
Well, since obviously they've got a placeholder here because they haven't worked it out,
Yeah, right.
I'm wondering if that's going to create a can of worms for us later on.
I don't know. Well, you know, when the mayor's office comes back to us for further
Well,
input
we're
on
not
this,
creating
we
the
could
can
help
of
them.
worms, though. We are merely pointing to the rule which the assembly has adopted. I mean, all we're doing is saying, well, the code says this, right? And our interpretation of that is that contributions to a PAC do not constitute municipal business. And not go beyond that.
Right.
You know, if they want to come back to us and say, well, what about contributions to this other, then we could go into it, like Dr. Kelly is
I
saying.
think subsection A is a placeholder, but subsection C is not. Fundraising for the municipality, and that gets into the nonprofit agency.
You have to be a 501c3, et cetera.
And so probably United Way is not unsettled, but as a qualified tax exempt nonprofit.
Well, then I would look at attachment A,
But do you
number
have to be a
6 on the attachment
501c3
A.
to be part of, to be one of the United Way entities that gets money through United Way?
I don't know.
I think the school district said that was the case.
That you had to be 501c3 to
They have-
get on United Way's list?
That's right.
Yeah. But United Way itself has two organizations. It has a 501c3 and a 501c6 or C4 too. So
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's how we wound up parsing out the Planned Parenthood issue, right? That Planned Parenthood has a separate,
C3
Yeah.
and C4.
right. And that
I mean,
money-
the to qualify for a 501c3 is actually a very long and lengthy process. So
So, no, I think this is in here, but it doesn't particularly, or may not particularly answer the question, because is the municipality doing fundraising for the PAC by allowing this? It's pretty similar to the United Way in terms of that that's a transfer of employee wages.
Yeah, the battery's dead on the thing, or going bad. It's gone by about
yes,
10
yeah.
minutes. Because I just changed that clock at the
Yeah.
beginning of the meeting
Okay.
to the correct time, because it was off by about 8 hours.
So you admit that you were fiddling with the clock and now it doesn't keep
Yes,
correct.
When you get back
it was
on.
saying 3
That's
o'clock, it
great.
was saying
That's great.
whatever. Just take it down. The battery needs replaced. It's a AA. I think it's just one.
Be careful, changing that battery is an official action, subject to further review.
But then now if it had fallen, it hit me in the
While we're in
head,
a mini recess,
Are we?
We're on
still on
tape.
tape.
No, we're not. We're not in recess. Sorry.
Then, Matt, I would move that we resubmit the same letter with the current date. Is that how you wanted it to work?
Well, I wonder, I mean, could we,
In addition, it may implicate this other section.
well, I wonder, should we at least, I wouldn't want to submit the exact same letter, but maybe just write a letter to Mr. Miller saying that we've reviewed it again and
We're upholding
we
it.
are going to reaffirm the timeless opinion that was issued.
I would agree with that.
That was issued, is issued, and will be issued.
so was that a second?
I'm kind of lost.
No, okay. You make the motion, you have it working.
All right, Madam Chairwoman, I move that we send a letter to Mr. Miller reaffirming our original opinion of 2009-1 on this matter.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Move to adjourn.
Whoa, you stopped. I was just going to ask for 7C, but for
Yeah.
next meeting.
At least one next meeting we need.
Goodbye.
Did we, that's what I was going to look here. Did we even schedule that already? Did we do that?
I think we stopped at August. No, Dr. Kelly's good.
Marissa, do you know when your sort of planned departure date is? So I can get working
That
on
was 10:14, isn't it?
boards and commissions.
14.
10:14.
I told Jay yesterday when she called me about the new person coming in, or potentially coming in, because she asked me a whole bunch of questions about times and everything else. I said, reminded her that Melissa was going to be leaving. Oh, really?
Mr. Baker's very aware of it. He's got, Mr. Tom Burgess' replacement in the wings.
No, we don't have one scheduled for September.
So he does have one in the wings?
For Tom Burgess' replacement for the 5th one, and then he knows that Marissa's leading as well.
You're going to re-up though,
Is the
right?
4th one an attorney? Because we needed one attorney on the board.
The
Well, I
one who's
believe this-
coming on will be an attorney as
Okay,
well.
okay,
so,
good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't make me set up a homeless encampment in front of City Hall to insist that the mayor.
But make
be
sure you
appointed.
have a tent, because you can't camp if you don't have a tent.
Well, I'm going to bring my guitar. My guitar once an hour. I think I'll be okay.
So it's September 14th? No,
September
21st?
21st.
21st.
September.
What, Mr. Kelly, or Dr. Kelly, what is your schedule working like this year?
Hair, Dr. Kelly. I have class until
He has class.
2:30 in the afternoon
On Wednesdays?
on Wednesdays.
I wonder if 3:30 to 5:30 would work. Just make it a half an hour later.
Okay, on the 21st, 3:30?
So what day is that?
Wednesday?
Wednesday? Barbara, does that work for you?
Yeah. Wednesdays are a little hard when I follow Tuesday night's meetings today, but yeah, part of the deal. That's fine.
But at least we're fun and lively. You know?
And then you were saying that October 14th was my last day? Is that what you said?
That's right.
Unless, I mean, you can carry on for, I think it's 90
Oh, that's right. In
days
fact, I
unless
think
your
you carry on until
replacement
the
is
replacement
gone.
90 or
arrives.
120 days.
Yeah.
That's right. You may be here a long time.
So the 19th of October would be the 3rd.
We have-
It conflicts with another meeting of mine, is the reason, that's why I was asking about schedules, if Friday works better, but that's not,
When you've got a standing Wednesday meeting?
on the third Wednesday, yeah,
Oh.
Oh, you do?
Because they jumped all over me, well, I'm surprised you're not gonna be there. I'm a board member of the Resource Development Council, and they said, well, we want you to be there. Well, hey, dude, I got something else I'm appointed to, it's more important. But so that's why I'm here today, because this is more important than that.
So every third Wednesday you have?
And there's like 70-some people on that board, so I'm not.
Yeah, every third Wednesday I have one at 5:30, so I just go right from this to my phone in the parking lot.
So should we?
But that's fine, it works.
I mean, a Friday works for me if that's the wish of the board.
Fridays work for me too. And the evenings, did we say evenings were not good for people? Were good for people?
Well, those of you with children, it makes it awkward.
Yeah, though evenings are actually better for me
Mm.
than late afternoon because it allows me to pick
Well,
up the
but
little
we're
back from
asking these
daycare
other
and
people
mom
here
can
to work
take over.
more overtime than they already work.
That's the territory.
So Fridays we can meet at 3. Friday, and that would be a standing time until December, January, when your schedule changes again? 3 on Fridays?
Yeah, in fact, 3 on Fridays works for me pretty much year round. The reason
Because
I was-
teachers, yeah, professors don't work on Friday.
I don't work on
Except
Fridays.
in the-
Well, I work up here on
Yeah.
Fridays.
But didn't we used to be 3 on Fridays?
We were always free on Friday. I think we
I
we
think
stopped.
I'm the one that tried to get us out of it.
We
because
stopped.
I had
Well,
to
they
leave
know-
every other Friday.
Yeah, no one really liked
Which
meeting
we
on
never-
Fridays, right? So
Oh, I
we
see.
started trying to fit, especially when summer came. It was sort of like, oh, that's right. People were just
And then
around.
summer, yeah.
Yeah.
Fridays just became
How
problematic.
does Thursday work for people?
Thursday I had the same limit. I'm teaching until 2:30, but after that, I would be free.
I don't want to be the one that sets the date, but Thursday, any other day but Wednesday and Friday is difficult for me because I have people in my office who can cover for me on Wednesdays and Fridays. Until I hire another person in my office.
So
I-
you don't
I can-
mind
I can-
Wednesday, because you
No,
were the one we're trying
Well,
to
except it
accommodate.
conflicts with the other thing. I can, but if everybody else can work Wednesday, I can do it Wednesday as well. Like I said, I'm one of 78, so it's not a big deal.
Well, how about for this autumn calendar, we say Wednesdays at 3:30?
3:30.
Yeah, or we could even do 3. I could certainly be here by 3.
Could you?
I know, of course, yeah.
Oh, then
Okay.
Wednesday
Okay,
3,
that's
let's just
Wednesday
do
at 3.
regular.
Oh yeah, I'm a professor. I can let them out whenever I
Doing-
want. I can be
So
here.
then is the 21st, the 19th,
September
So
21st?
my last meeting will be September 21st.
October
No. Does not work that way.
16th.
You're here until we have a replacement. Or until the mayor reacts to my homeless encampment calling for your reappointment.
So we're back to 3.
She should be reappointed.
3.
Don't make me not bathe for a month. And then, I'm sorry, November 16th, is that what we said? I'm sorry, it's the 3rd. You don't have to get up, I'll figure it out.
November 16th. November 16th. And I think it was December 21st. And December 21st. First day of Hanukkah. Okay.
Did we officially adjourn or do we have to adjourn?
Well, it was.
Oh, the moment he said it, we adjourned, isn't it?
We still haven't voted on the original.
We haven't voted on the motion. It's hanging out there, and technically it takes precedence, but we ignored him.
That's right.
I have to go. So, could someone please second the motion?
Seconded.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.